What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Nemo Propaganda here. Now, I've been running this review channel for about 4 or 5 years, and what I've noticed is sometimes I think we get a little too riled up. I think we kind of fall into some bad habits, some bad behaviors that tend to take the fun, the joy, and the happiness and serenity that the hobby is supposed to provide, and we can get a little frustrated. So I've made this list of some bad habits that I think all of us can kind of have from time to time, myself included. And I just want to kind of mention them so, we can all keep an eye out for them and just try to be better, right? I'm not being critical and I'm not judging anyone. So we're going to try to do this with some positivity and with the goal of trying to remember this is a hobby. It's supposed to be fun and we're all supposed to be having a good time, right? So the first habit that I've noticed is selective hearing or jumping to conclusions, right? I've seen people reference other reviewers' work and say, hey, this other reviewer said XYZ, and the person is paraphrasing just a little too much, or they only heard the part of the video that validated their own feeling, or they only heard the part of the video that upset them that they didn't like, and they want to raise issue to that and that only, right? And I just don't think that's a good habit to have, taking things out of context or hyper focusing on one small part of someone's review, right? Whether it's my review or someone else's. Another thing I see a lot of people do, and this doesn't impact me at all, but I see it in my Discord server. I see it in the comments section. I've even seen some of my friends do it, and that's forming an opinion too quickly. I've gotten comments from guys that are like, I just bought this speaker. I'm not really happy with it, man. I think I'm going to send it back, And I start talking to them only to find out it only delivered 2 days ago. Oh my goodness, guys, you got to spend more time with the gear. Most of this, look, whether you believe in break-in or not, I think we can all agree at minimum, it takes time for the person just to get it set up in the room properly, right? Me personally, I break in everything I review and I listen to everything for a minimum of 10 listening hours. Oftentimes it's 20 hours or more before I form an opinion and sit down and film a review. If you're buying products and you're using that in-home trial, guys, you want to spend as much time as possible. Do not return a product until you're just within a few days of that return window. Take the full 30 or 45 days. Trust me. Some of this stuff can take 2 or 3 weeks. I can't tell you how many times I didn't like something initially in the first 1, 2, or even 5 hours, only for my opinion to do a complete 360 once I realized, oh, I just needed to toe them in a little bit more, or oh, my stand height just wasn't quite right, or I just didn't have the right amp and stuff like that. And I know some of that stuff, me as the reviewer, I have access to more gear, but just don't form an opinion so quickly. Be a little patient. Have fun with the exploration phase of new gear is my advice. Another one is another bad habit I see is applying general statements as iron laws. I see this happen all the time. Some of you guys get a little too black and white, a little bit too extreme. Someone might say something as a general statement, or there might be a general truth in the hobby, and you will file that in your brain as just this iron law. I'll give you an example. It's a general thing people say is that small subwoofers are going to have a tighter sound or a quicker sound because they're smaller, right? And that's generally true, but that's by no means an iron law. It's not always true. No, sir, it is certainly not always true. I can list many large subwoofers that play tighter, have better transient response than a lot of small subwoofers, believe it or not. I can give you a lot of examples of this stuff, guys. Do not take generalizations and make them iron laws. Matter of fact, there are very few iron laws in this hobby, guys. There are very few. Most of the things people say are generalizations, in my opinion, and we should all remember that. Because you know what happens when something becomes like an iron law in your brain is like you're just becoming really rigid, right? And the more rigid you are as a human being, the more stuff's going to bother you. The more you're going to be reactive to someone's opinion instead of just having fun, right? Got to remember, this hobby's not about right or wrong. It's about enjoyment, ain't it? Next one, being too overly attached to any particular reviewer, right? You can't be over emotionally invested, you know? You can have your favorites, that's okay. But like even me, no one should watch my content and be like, that's my guy. I trust him more than everyone. His word is gold. And if anyone disagrees with Nemo propaganda, I'm going to get upset with them. You shouldn't do that. Reviewers are allowed to disagree with each other. Reviewers are totally allowed to have different takes on gear and products. And again, it's okay to have one you prefer, but I'm not a fan of putting anyone on a pedestal, whether it's a sports team, a celebrity, or some moron on YouTube like myself that reviews HiFi gear. Guys, we're not celebrities. I promise you, I put my pants on one leg at a time, just like you do. Next one on the list, knowing your taste, reference versus preference, and knowing when our taste is beyond accuracy or artist intent. This one's really important. I'll see people in the comments say a product's bad, but what they're really saying is this speaker or amplifier or DAC just wasn't the sound I was looking for. And for some reason, you're confusing your preference with reference. You think just because the sound is not what you wanted, it's bad. Guys, there are very few bad products in this hobby. It is okay. There's nothing wrong with your preference dictating what you like and don't like. But you should not brand a product as bad or poor performing publicly or to other people simply because you do not like it. I'll give you an example. I don't like trucks. I don't like the way trucks drive. I like sports cars. It would be ridiculous of me to say trucks are garbage, right? Without explaining that I like sports cars. You might be like, hey, Nemo, you made it sound like trucks are just like these like bad vehicles, but you just happen to like sports cars. You're not the customer for trucks, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But I have been throwing around the idea of like getting an F-150 V8 and turbocharging it, but that's another story. I just thought that'd be super cool. So yeah, guys, do not confuse your preference with reference. Your preference is your own reference. That's okay. But you can't just brand a product as bad because you didn't like it, right? What else? What else we got on this list of bad habits? Things we could all improve, you know? Wanting to believe reviewers are poor or struggling to be more credible. How about that? I see that a lot. Oh my God. I see a lot of comments of people counting other people's money, and that's a bad habit, man. The only person's money you should count is your own. You should never be taking someone else's financial inventory. If you think a reviewer is morally questionable or bought or whatever, just don't watch their content. You can have the opinion, that's fine. That human beings, you know, we have opinions, that's fine. You shouldn't go around publicly declaring it because you probably don't really know. It's very rare for someone to know the truth about another human being's financial situation. That's just information that's not generally shared, right? So don't guess, don't assume, don't count someone else's money, and don't expect people to be like struggling. Like, I just don't know what it is. Like, I just see people get upset when they find out someone has money, or like you want to believe reviewers are like a struggling artist. And it's just not the case, guys. I don't know the financial situation of most reviewers, but I think most do all right. And I think we should celebrate that. And I'll go as far as to say, if you find out a reviewer is far more wealthier than you initially believed, celebrate that. That's success. We should celebrate people's success, right? That's what I think, you know. What's next here? We only got 2 left on this list. Oh yeah. How about this one? The whole my way or the highway attitude. The people that can't let things, can't do things their own way, or have their own beliefs. Let people do. Oh, sorry. My way or the highway is what I wrote. That's the problem, the mindset. And a habit these people have is they can't let people do things their way. It has to be, you know, the way the person thinks. And I'll give you an example. You know, let's say, for example, I'm using a tube amp and I'm using a certain set of tubes. Someone say like, oh, those tubes aren't good, man. And I'm like, well, I like them. And they're like, no, those tubes are bad. Like you're not getting the best out of them. And I'm like, well, okay, like that's okay. But like, I'm happy with these tubes. And like this person will just get like really upset with me that I won't use the tubes that they think are correct. And that's an honest example. Every time I review a tube amp, there's someone in the comments that is furious with me because I didn't tube roll. I didn't try some like exotic tube that only they know about. And I try to explain to them like, hey, like I'm reviewing this like finished component. I'm not reviewing individual tubes. And they're like, well, you should do it like this and you should do it like that. And they just start telling me how to run my channel. And I can't help but think, I'm like, man, you must really be fun at parties. You know what I mean? So don't have a my way or the highway attitude. I promise you, your opinion on how hi-fi should be enjoyed is only relevant to yourself for the most part. By all means, if you think you have helpful information that may help someone else enjoy the hobby, share it with them. But if they're not receptive to it, leave it. Leave it alone. You know what I mean? There's no point. The last one, asking someone else a value-based question. I've always believed value is inherently personal. And the irony with value is it doesn't even seem to matter if the two people are in similar income brackets. They will still oftentimes have different ideas and opinions on what value is. I'll give you an example. I have an uncle who's at the tail end of his career. He's been a business owner his whole life. He is very successful. Him and his wife take 4 international trips a year. They fly business class and they eat at the finest restaurants around the world, right? What does he drive? He drives a Toyota 4Runner. To him, the Toyota 4Runner, at about 55K, is the pinnacle of value. He doesn't have an S-Class or any fancy car. He just has a 4Runner and he has like the base model, like no options, nothing. Because to him, that's the best value. Matter of fact, recently he's been complaining, saying the 4Runner's too expensive. He can afford a car that's like 5 times the price. But to him, like a 50K SUV, that's killer value. I have another friend who makes less than my uncle by quite a bit. And to this friend, the best value car is a Porsche 911. Now, Porsche 911 is like $150,000 car. I don't think most people would say a car that is $150,000 is value, right? That's not how my brain works, but one of my friends genuinely thinks that, right? So value is just so personal, guys. It's so personal. Only you can decide if something is of high value or low value. And I'll give you another example. Like anytime I review something that's expensive, there's always someone that says, I just don't think it's worth it. And I'm like, for you, it may not be, and that's okay. But don't think for a second the product's not good just because you think it is the price is too high, right? Oftentimes, guys, this is just the truth for a lot of people. Most people start to see reduced value around the same area their budget runs out. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not judging anyone, but be mindful of that. Make sure you're not just being a hater, because that's a bad habit. Being a hater will put you in a bad mood a little bit. It'll have you have a little chip on your shoulder, and it's hard to kick back and relax and enjoy music when you have a chip on your shoulder, right? So that's the list, guys. If you had any of those habits or any of those resonated with you, hopefully I was able to bring that into the forefront of your mind, and you can do your best to try to overcome some of that. I know we can all be a little bit difficult from time to time. And again, myself included, I'm not Gandhi or some other, figure that is perceived as perfect. I have my faults. I get a little too rigid with certain things sometimes, I'll give you an example of I'll tell on myself. This is unique to me as being the reviewer. I get frustrated when someone asks me a question and then they don't take my advice, right? And they're like, oh, I think I'm going to go in a different direction. Like I get bothered by that, and I shouldn't, right? I should give the advice freely and have no attachment to the outcome, right? That's silly of me. That's me letting myself get a chip on my shoulder, right? So we all do some version of stuff like this. Hope you found this list helpful, guys. That's about all I have. This YouTube channel does have a free Discord server. The link is in the description of all my videos. Feel free to hop in there if you want to chat more with like-minded people. And until next time, take care.